Hello, am I audible to you? Can you all hear me? Okay, alright. Good evening, Samu. I'm seeing you after a long time, isn't it? Okay, so let us just wait for 1 more minute so that if anyone else has to come, they can just join and then we'll start. Alright, just for a minute. Okay, so we can just start now. So today we are going to study about macroeconomics. Okay, you understand macroeconomics? What is the meaning of this word? Anyone is aware what is macroeconomics? Okay, big. Yeah, economics in broader sense. That means Abdul Rauf. Good evening. Welcome to class. I guess it's your first class. Okay, all right. So welcome. So we are starting with a new topic today, that is macroeconomics. So you can just join. Uh, so macroeconomics means when we talk about the economics in a larger sense, like till now whatever we have studied, that all was a part of microeconomics. Okay, now this is macroeconomics. So in macroeconomics, we study about the things which affect the economy as a whole. The whole economy gets affected by these these topics which we will be studying right now. Okay, so the major part of macroeconomics is national income and public debt, because these are the two things which affect the country or a nation as a whole. So let's just start now. So we all know that the human wants are unlimited and the resources are very scarce. This is the basic reason why economics holds uh, most importance. Okay, because it is with the help of economics that we are able to allocate the resources in such a way that our unlimited wants get satisfied with the limited wants which we have. So this is where the economics role starts. So economic theory or analysis deals with the basic proposition of how human beings or individual economic units behave against the problems of scarcity and react to the observed changes. Okay. So in economic analysis, what are the reasons behind this? The first is that the human beings often face the problems of scarcity and choice. The aspect of choice occurs as consumers can satisfy only some of their wants while they have to forego others. Suppose you are having 10 rupees in your pocket, and with that 10 rupees, you can either buy a burger, or you can buy 2 bananas, or you can just get a recharge done of 10 rupees, anything like that. Means there are unlimited options, or they are all unlimited wants that you want to satisfy with that 10 rupees. So you have to make the best choice, the choice that will give you the maximum satisfaction. Okay. The freedom of choice gives rise to opportunity cost, which is the next best alternative choice that has been foregone. Opportunity cost we have discussed previously. It means the cost of the next best alternative that has been left. Suppose you don't okay, so you can just so you got this? I mean, did you understand this? What I have told you? So are the things clear so far? Am I audible? Samu, Muhammad, Arun, and Abdul. Okay, Samu, that's good. Actually, I'm not at my home. I'm somewhere out. I'm on a vacation. So I'm taking class from a new place. So I'm not very sure if the signals are absolutely fine or not. So Samu says clear. What about Muhammad, Arun, and Abdul? Disturbance. Abdul, is there any disturbance? Actually, it's pin drop silence. There's no one around. It's absolutely quiet over here. Alright, so let's just continue. So, opportunity cost is the real cost of a choice and can be applied not only to consumer choices at the micro level, but also community choices at the macro level. Like, you have 10 rupees and you take up the burger instead of getting your phone recharged. So, the cost of getting your phone recharged is your opportunity cost. Alright? So as this whole principle is applicable to an individual consumer, the same concept is applicable to the economy as a whole. Like India is the sixth economically prosperous country in the world at present. It is. So we can India can either focus on the manufacturing of rice, or it can just focus on the manufacture of cotton. So if it will leave the option of rice, then that will be its opportunity cost. So major focus of economic analysis is on how individual, 1 minute. Okay, so the major focus of economic analysis is on how individual economic units have to make a choice among the limited resources. So economic analysis establishes reference points that indicate what to look for and how economic issues are interrelated. This enables better understanding of relationships among the complex and often unrelated economic events in the actual world. Alright, so this economic analysis, it helps us in establishing reference points. Reference points means like parameters. We can set certain parameters. If a unit of, if suppose we go to the market and by spending 100 rupees, we are getting basket of goods. Okay, there are 5 choices which we have. So we will go for that basket of goods which is offering us the maximum satisfaction. We will not opt for the one which is giving us the minimum satisfaction. So this is the reference points. Now how that reference points is arrived at, that is with the help of the economics analysis. So the last is that, however, a serious limitation may emanate from the assumptions which form the basis of these propositions. Therefore, such assumptions must be realistic so as to serve the purpose of understanding economic issues and propositions. For example, when we study about the demand analysis, if you remember, Samu, when we were studying the demand analysis, and others also, you might be knowing about the demand analysis. It's a very simple concept. Muhammad, Arun and Abdul, are you aware of that? Demand analysis, how is demand, what is the relationship between demand and price? As the price of a commodity goes up, the demand goes down, and as the price goes down, the demand goes up. This is simple, isn't it? So when we are making this, when we are studying that concept, we assume some certain things. Like the first thing which we assume is that the income of the consumer remains constant. And that is not practically possible. The income is going to vary. It may probably increase, and sometimes it may also decrease. The other assumption which we take up is that there are no substitutes. And the worst assumption to this is that the choice and preference of the consumer remains the same. But this is not actually practical. Do you think this is going to happen? The choice and preference of consumer will always remain the same for the products? He will always use Lux soap. It will not go for Nivea. Is that a practical assumption? No, that is not. He can switch to Nivea, he can switch to Rexona, he can switch to any other brand. Okay, so the assumptions should be realistic. They shouldn't be very, very unrealistic. The new students, did you get this? Hello, the new students. In fact, everybody, did you get that? Samu? Okay. Now what are the things that we are going to study in this one? These are the basic things. Alright? So, first is the classification of economics. The economics as a subject has been defined as a positive and a normative economics, macroeconomics, microeconomics, different terms are there. So positive and normative. You know what is that? Positive and normative. What is positive economics and what is normative economics? Please tell me. Who knows that? Okay, I don't think anyone knows that. So when we talk about positive economics is that aspect of the economics in which the economics is backed up by data and figures. Okay, it talks on a very practical basis. It talks on a very objective basis. The things are very much based on data and fact. And normative economics is something that is not based on data and facts. It is when we talk about things on the basis of our preference. Okay, although I would say, although one apple is giving me more satisfaction, but I'll prefer to eat 3 bananas instead, because my preference is banana. Although apple is better for me, I'm getting more satisfaction, and I'm getting a healthy option, but I will go for banana because that is my preference. So this is normative economics, based on preference, not based on data and analysis. Is it clear, everyone? What about the others? The two A's, Arun and Abdul? Okay, all right. So macroeconomics is that we have discussed. It is the economics as a whole on a very broader scale in terms of a country, and micro is on an individual level, as an individual consumer, as an individual shopkeeper, as an individual manufacturer, or maybe as an individual industry as well. Now, this is something a little historical. How did this develop? So like microeconomics deals with the behavior of individual entities like individuals, markets, firms, household, etc. Thus it looks into the micro aspects of the economy, whereas macroeconomics studies the broader aspects of the economy and studies the behavior of an economy as a whole. This is something that we have been discussing till now. Okay, so how does this develop? Keynes pioneered a new approach to macroeconomics and macroeconomic policies. Keynes is a famous economist. He was a famous economist. Okay, so any discussion on macroeconomics starts with J.M. Keynes, the famous economist. Now, prior to Keynes, the business cycles were considered to be inevitable, and there was no concrete approach to solve these problems. So these economists, known as classical economists, focused only on the micro aspects of the economy. So Great Depressions of 1930s left many of these economists helpless. You know, business is very much dependent, or rather business cycles are the outcomes of the business and trading. You know what are business cycles? What does that mean? Business cycle. No? Okay. What about others? Anybody? No. I think Samu is typing something. Arun also. No. Business cycles are the different phases of a business. Okay. So there are like the basic two are depression and boom. I'll just type it. Depression and boom. Okay. So depression is when when the economy is in a very depressing state, means the things are not very favorable, they are unfavorable. That is depression. When when there is no market, there are no sales, no manufacturing, unemployment, and everything. And boom is the reverse of that, when the things are very much streamlined, and earnings of the people is good at this point of time. People make profits, they make supernormal profits, and the economy is the people are fully employed, there is no unemployment and related issues, no poverty, nothing. That is boom. Okay. So this business cycle is like inevitable. It has to be there when we are talking about business. So because of this, the classical economists, the classical means those of very old time, means prior to 1930s. So that those economists, they came up with the concept of this macroeconomics. Previously, the economics was just about an individual person, individual firm, individual industry, individual market, that's it. Not about the whole country as a whole. So Keynes He argued that it is possible that high unemployment and underutilization of the capacities may take place and continue in the market economy. He also argued that government can play a bigger role during the economic depressions by effective utilization of monetary and fiscal policies. Now, after the World War II, the focus of economics was just aimed at countering unemployment and inflation, and some economists proposed a fixed money growth rate to address these issues like inflation and unemployment. So hence these economists were called as monetarists, as they have given importance to money. So after this World War II, the economy of all the nations of the world was badly shaken up. So because of this, there was unemployment, inflation. What is inflation? What is inflation? Up and down in business. No, that is not inflation. That is the business cycle. Inflation is rise in prices. Okay, yeah, increase of prices, price variation. That is inflation. So actually it's not price variation, Arun, because price variation can be both ways. It can be like prices may go down also, but that is deflation. Yeah, there is variation in the money value. That is very correct. So because of the World War, these two things became very prominent in the different economies of the world. So some of the economists proposed a fixed money growth rate to address these issues. They thought that money is the root cause to all these problems. Because of money there is inflation. What is happening is there is inflation. Then inflation means higher prices. So obviously when the prices are high, people will not buy the goods. So the demand for the products will go down. As the demand will go down, the manufacturing will also come to end. And as the manufacturing will come to end, people will get unemployed. Isn't it? So these things are all interrelated. So they said that let us fix the value of money. We should aim at like the value of the money should not go very haphazard. It should increase or decrease at a very steady rate. So these economists were called monetarists because they were focused on money. Okay, so did you understand the relationship between inflation and unemployment? How can money be the cause of this inflation and unemployment? Okay. So in the last few decades, another school of thought has gained prominence among noted economists. These economists opine that people should be given enough incentives for their earnings rather than imposing taxes on their earnings. So this group of economists advocates incentives for savings known as supply side economics. Okay, so it is the demand that influences the price of the products. The price of the products depends on the demand. Now what about supply? So there is so people said that these economists said that people should be given incentives for their earnings. Like if we will increase too much of taxes on the people, then they will feel disheartened. They will not work hard to earn more money because what they will think is whatever we are earning, government is taking from us in the form of taxes. So it's better we don't earn more. They feel disheartened. So the other group of economists, they said that people should be given incentives for saving the money. And that is called the supply side economics. So what are the goals of macroeconomic policy? They should be macroeconomic, dealing with the whole economy. There should be full employment, higher living standards, there should be price stability, reduction of economic inequality, rapid economic growth, and steady foreign exchange position. So these all things can be achieved if we are having a very sound macroeconomic policy. All right. Hello. Hello. So am I audible? Sorry, the connection went off. Okay. Yes. So you can see here is a graph which is showing unemployment rises in recessions, falls during expansions. Okay. When there is a situation of recession, recession is like depression only. The economy is going in the reverse direction. Depression is the worst form of the economy. Recession is somewhat better. So you can see the unemployment level is continuously increasing, and as the unemployment as there is expansion, as means the economy gets better off, the unemployment level goes down. So what is full employment? The effect for this macroeconomic indicator is directly felt by the individuals. It is imperative on any government that it should ensure full employment to the citizens of its country. So unemployment rate shows different patterns in different phases of business cycles. So in the given figure, it can be seen that unemployment rate in the US was too high between 1930 and 1940. During this period, the economists witnessed one of the worst depressions. This is with reference to US, because US is the strongest economy in the world. So it is like the worst, it was highest. The unemployment level was highest between this period. Now, let us talk about GDP. GDP is a very important concept, and it is a very much an indicator of the level of an economy or the state of an economy, where the economy is going. That is being indicated by GDP. GDP stands for gross domestic product. Okay, so let us now see that. The ultimate aim of any economy is to provide the desired goods and services. So the economy should be in a position to offer these goods and services in ample number. To measure the output of any economy, gross domestic product is the most comprehensive estimate. So GDP measures the market value of the entire output in a country during a particular year. You know, GDP, it stands for gross domestic product. I'll just write it. GDP, gross domestic product. It means it indicates the level of manufacturing in a country, level of output production in a country. So if a country is giving a good GDP, means it is manufacturing, it is producing a lot of things. It means there is demand for its product, not only in the country, even abroad. So higher the GDP, more prosperous is the economy, believed to be. And lower the GDP, the situation is not so good. So there are two variants in the GDP, nominal and real. So when nominal GDP is adjusted for inflation, it gives the real GDP. In every economy, there is always inflation. Some percentage of inflation is always there. So when we adjust that level of inflation in our GDP, we get the real GDP. Real GDP, okay? So the importance of GDP can be analyzed by the fact that any predictions regarding the future growth or fall in the economy or date on the past economic performances are made in the GDP percentage. So in the recent figures released by Central, this is not needed. So like GDP is really important. You might have heard sometimes in the news and all, the people say that government has expected the GDP for this financial year to be 7.8%. Okay, so that means the government is expecting an increase in the GDP in the present year, and that means the government is expecting better situation. Now, price stability. This was also one of the aspects of macroeconomics. So stable prices are the third macroeconomic objective. CPI, that is the Consumer Price Index, is the most commonly used measure of overall price level in an economy. Now there are two types of price indexes. Price indexes means the indicator of prices prevailing in the economy. So there are two of these types. One is Consumer Price Index, that is of the nature that we are used to, that is of the nature which affects us as an individual, that is CPI. And the second is Wholesale Price Index. Okay, Wholesale Price Index is concerned with the manufacturers. It is not concerned with the consumers. For consumers, this is important, Consumer Price Index. So this measures the overall price level in any economy. So CPI is the measure of the cost of different types of goods bought by the average customer. So inflation denotes the rise or fall in general price level in the economy. Inflation rates shows the rate of change in the price index. When the inflation is high, the purchasing power of the customers reduces. Yes, when the purchasing power is high, we have 100 rupees. Previously we were getting apples for 80 rupees a kg, and now we are getting it for 100 rupees a kg. So when it was for 80 rupees, so we had extra 20 rupees which could be spent on other things as well. So our purchasing power was more. Isn't it? नहीं चल रहा है. Okay, so a negative fall in the prices is known as deflation, as witnessed during the Great Depression of 1930, whereas hyperinflation refers to rise in prices by thousands of percentage points, resulting in a collapse of the price systems. So hyperinflation was witnessed in Weimar Germany. So that's it. I mean, what is deflation? Deflation is the reverse of inflation. When the price levels goes down. So that is also not good for the economy. Okay, that is also not a good state. And this happened during the famous depression of 1930. Now the next target of a sound macroeconomic policy is sustainable balance of payment. Balance of payment. Now do you remember or do you know what is balance of payment? Samu, do you remember that? What is balance of payment? Could you please tell me? What is balance of payment? BOP. Hmm? Balance of payment is an indicator of our foreign standing. Our or rather it is the indicator of the payments which we owe or which we own at the international level. How is our foreign trade going on? That is indicate payment. Record of export. And import. Between the value of exports and value of imports, so net exports are also called as the balance of trade. Every country desires to have a positive balance of trade. Now, related to this if we export more, we got more balance. Yes. Now there is one more term hidden in this balance of payment, that is called balance of trade. Balance of trade is just the record of physical exports and imports, means it just talks about that. And in balance of payment, we include other things as well. Like suppose foreign tourists come to our country. So are they going to spend in the country? Yes, they are going to spend in our country. So in that case, we will get money from them. If we make investments abroad, we are going to earn interest from those investments. That is again an income for us. So we include everything in that. And in balance of trade, we just talk about the physical trading. Okay, how much spices have we sent, how much silk have we taken, and all that. Only those things are included. And in balance of payment, we include interest, spendings by foreigners, then services of the professionals. Like if our doctors go to America, they're going to get money from them. So that will be a part of our balance of payment. Similarly, if we call doctors from abroad, we pay to them. So that is also a part of our balance of payment. So everything is included, visible as well as invisible items in balance of payment. So balance of payment is a wider term. Okay. So net exports are just called the balance of trade. So every country desires to have a positive balance of trade. Yeah, everybody wants to have a positive one, means more of exports and lesser of imports. Now the next thing is the economic growth. Now every country wishes to and strives for having a constant growth in its economy. Now there are two parameters that judge the rate of growth that an economy achieves. One is the increase in production possibility curve or schedule, and second is growth in the GDP or per capita income. You understand per capita income? What is this per capita income? Per capita income is the income per head income. Okay. Yeah, ratio production and people. Yeah, we can say that, or rather we can say income per head. So if the GDP is growing at G% per annum and population at P%, then per capita GDP must be growing by 1 plus G upon 1 plus P minus 1. This is the equation for calculating the change in per capita income if we have been given the rate of GDP and the rate of growth of population as well. Okay. So these two things should be in increasing pattern. Then we will have a economic growth. Now these are some basic things. What are the basic concepts in macroeconomics? Let's see that. So in macroeconomic study, various variables are used. Some are stock variables and some are flow variables. So variables like money supply, CPI, that is Consumer Price Index, foreign exchange reserve, which can be measured at any given point of time, are called stock variables. Whereas variables like GDP, inflation, imports, consumption, and investment, which can be measured only over a period of time, are flow variables. Okay? Those which can be measured at any point of time are, what are they? They are stock variables. And those which can be measured only over a period of time are called flow variables. Like we can measure GDP only for like there should be a gap of at least 3 months, 6 months, or a year, then imports, exports, everything. Now, it reflects the balance between the opposing forces, whereas disequilibrium reflects the lack of such balance. So in economic parlance, equilibrium does not mean a motionless state. Rather, here the action is more repetitive in nature. So economic models consist of stock and flow variables. These can be either in the state of equilibrium or disequilibrium. So if it's in disequilibrium, we have to work to get it into equilibrium. So models that do not consider the behavior of variables from one time period to another in an explicit manner are called static models. And dynamic models, dynamic means something that keeps on changing. So they talk about the movement of things over a period of time. Hello? Hello? Is my voice reaching? Okay, actually the signal is very bad. I'm just getting one. Hello? So if we have to diagnose the health of the economy, national product, domestic product, aggregate consumption, gross domestic savings, gross domestic capital formation, wholesale prices, consumer prices and inflation, employment, balance of payment, rate of growth. We have to consider all these things. Okay? Arun, is it better now? Okay. Now, how are we going to bring about the changes? We have been seeing that the policy should be about this, the policy should be about that. Now, how is this change going to come? What is the means to do that? Now, for this, we have two instruments. One is fiscal policy and the other is monetary policy. And once we'll finish this fiscal and monetary policy, I'll just wind up the class. Okay? Because I don't think there'll be too much time left then, and the worst part is that the signals are not very good over here. So in between the electricity went off. That is why I just went offline. I connected through a mobile then. Okay, let us first study what is the fiscal policy. Fiscal policy means the policy that, or we can say fiscal policy refers to those steps which will be taken by the government of the country. Okay, they are the things which the government of any country can do to bring about changes in the scenarios of the economy. That is the fiscal policy. Okay, so the things which are in the hands of the government are the taxes and the government expenditure. The government can frame its taxation policy. Government can frame its government expenditure pattern. So all these things are in the hands of the government, and they can control the inflation and every bad thing in the economy with the help of these. You know, sometimes what happens is the economy gets too slow. So in those cases, the government deliberately creates inflation so that the things may go up quickly, because inflation to some extent is always good, but too much of it is bad, but to some extent it is fine. So government has to expenses, infrastructural development, government expenditure. Just a second, 1 minute. to the elderly and unemployed. Now, Abdul, can you hear me? Hello? 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 Can you hear me? Can you hear me? It's just a matter of 2-3 minutes. So we can just do this and then we can wind up. Okay? So like in India, there are pension schemes. So a lot of government expenditure is done on these heads also. So all these expenses leave a positive effect on the overall economy. So the impact of government spending is also felt on the overall spending in the economy, thus influencing the size of the GDP. So basically, with the help of its fiscal policies, the government can control the various negative things in the economy. Now, the second part of fiscal policy is the generation of revenue for the government. How can the government get the revenue? They can get the revenue from the taxes, which they will impose on their people. So, taxation is a very important source of revenue for the government. So, taxes affect the economy and the individual in two ways. The first, tax imposed on the income of the people bring down the disposable income in the hands of the consumers. Like what is happening is a portion of their income is going as the tax. So whatever is left in their hand, that is less. Okay. Now this reduces the spending in the economy. Second, the taxes levied on goods and services makes them costlier. This discourages the firm to invest in capital goods. When the government levies the taxes on goods and services, then what happens is the things become costlier. You must be knowing, like in every item we have to pay tax also. We have to pay the service tax, and service tax is very high at this point of time in India. It is something around 14.5%. So eating out is very expensive now. Service tax, watching movie in the theater is very expensive. Okay, so things become costly, so people feel discouraged to spend the money on things. So again, there too much spending in the economy is controlled. So government can adjust its policy accordingly, depending on the situation. Then the next is the monetary policy. The monetary policy is that it talks about that part which is in the hands of the central bank of the country. Every country has a central bank. Okay, and that central bank takes care of the central bank of the country is responsible for the monetary policy. Like in India, the central banking authority is the Reserve Bank of India. So Reserve Bank of India is responsible for the monetary policy that is going to favor the government. Like in case the inflation goes up, if the inflation is too high in the economy, then what the central bank can do is, it might just do some small thing. It might just increase the rate of loan, the bank loan. Then what will happen is, the bank loan will become costlier and people will be discouraged to take the loan from the bank and do spendings. They will be discouraged to take loan and buy a car, to take a loan and buy a house. They won't do that. So in that case, the bank is able to put a check on the spending by the government, by the people. So inflation is controlled to some extent in that way. Alright? Is it clear? Hello? Hello? Okay, so what I am saying is, let's wind up now. Everybody, thanks for your time, and I would just say thanks for your time, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the session. Please fill the feedback form, which you will be getting in the end. And Abdul, I'll be sending this material to the coordinator, and you can send a request to the coordinator with your ID. The coordinator is going to send you. Okay? I cannot send it to you directly. Is that fine, Rauf? You can get it from the coordinator. She is going to send you. Just write a mail to her requesting her for the session material. Okay. So see you all in the next class. Bye. Thank you. Please fill the feedback form, everyone. Good night. Take care of yourself. Have a great week ahead. Bye. Good night.